Chapter 9, Leadership. Leadership is the process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. The process of influencing others through leadership involves facilitating motivation in others, where the leader focuses on getting individuals to collaborate in the pursuit of a common goal. Our two operational definitions for leadership are the behavioral process of influencing individuals or groups towards set goals, or influencing others through credibility, capability, and commitment. Bill Walton is an American retired basketball player and television sportscaster. Walton became known playing for John Wooden's powerhouse UCLA Bruins in the early 1970s, and he won 3 successive College Player of the Year awards while leading the Bruins to 2 Division I national titles. He then went on to have a prominent career in the NBA, where he was the league's most valuable player and won 2 NBA championships. Bill Walton had this to say about his former coach. Wooden was a teacher. He taught on a consistent basis, from showing us how to put on our shoes and socks to building a foundation based on the human values and personal characteristics embodied in what he calls his pyramid of success. All of this was done in the subtlest of ways. While our practices were the most demanding endeavors, both physically and emotionally, that I've ever been a part of, there was always a sense of people having fun playing a simple game. So let's do a self-evaluation. How many leader qualities do you have? On a sheet of paper or in your notes, please rate yourself for the following qualities. For each quality, you will rate yourself as a 1, 2, or 3. A 1 is not like me at all. A 2 is somewhat like me. And a 3 is very much like me. If you need to, you can pause the video so that you can have more time to rank yourself on each of these characteristics. These are some noted leader qualities. Again, please rank yourself as a 1, 2, or 3. 1 is not like me at all. 2 is somewhat like me. And 3 is very much like me. So the first characteristic is integrity. How would you rank yourself? Flexibility, loyalty, confidence, accountability, candor, preparedness, resourcefulness, self-discipline, and lastly, patience. So how'd you do? Where would you rank yourself? Do you have mostly 1s, mostly 2s, or mostly 3s? Based on what you just evaluated yourself and related to these characteristics, what are your strengths as a leader? And what are your potential weaknesses? Every leader has them, so what is yours? So how do people become leaders, and who exactly is a leader? Emphasis is placed on better understanding leadership as a complex social process. There are 4 factors of effective leadership: leader qualities, situational factors, leadership styles, and follower qualities. In sport and exercise, dimensions of leaderships also include making decisions, motivating participants, giving feedback, establishing interpersonal relationships, and directing the team or group confidently. The words manager, leader, and instructor are often used interchangeably. However, they are not always the same thing. A manager takes care of things such as scheduling, budgeting, and organizing, whereas a leader is concerned more with the direction of an organization, including its goals and objectives. Leaders often perform the same functions as a manager. However, leaders act in other important ways as well. Leaders commonly provide vision, direction, goals, and objectives for the team, and leaders try to provide the resources and support to get the job done. An instructor teaches skills and techniques. Activity-centered tasks are commonly employed to get engagement from group members. They are focused on results, and they use their position to gain compliance from the members of the group or students in the class. Coaches, teachers, and exercise specialists are leaders who seek to provide each participant with the maximum opportunities to achieve success. A successful leader also tries to ensure that individual success helps achieve team success. Typical leader considerations. Can task structure be used to advantage without coercion and deceit towards subordinates? And also decision verifiability. Examination of the degree to which decisions are correct. We need to examine the consequences associated with actions and decisions. Can leaders create goal clarity? Are task requirements clearly stated or known to group members? Have you been clear in your communication? What about goal path multiplicity? Is there more than one way to be successful at the task? And if there are you allowing other people to use pathways that you didn't necessarily design yourself? How can we increase the probability of successful leadership? We can use appropriate style. We need to meet the situational needs. The job must fit the person, and good leaders learn to change styles in different situations. There are a huge number of beliefs, theories, models, and approaches to leadership. We can't possibly cover them all, so we will focus on just a few of these theories. The situational leadership model. During the mid-1970s, the life cycle theory of leadership was renamed to situational leadership model. The fundamental framework of the situational leadership model is that there is no single best style of leadership. Effective leadership is task relevant, and the most successful leaders are those who adapt their leadership style to the performance readiness or the ability and the willingness of the individual or group that they're attempting to lead or influence. Effective leadership varies, not only with the person or the group that's being influenced, but also dependent upon the task, job, or function that needs to be accomplished. The situational leadership model rests on two fundamental concepts: leadership style and the individual or group's performance readiness level. Here is the life cycle of leadership. At the start of an activity, task, or project, the individual, team, or group can be confused and uncoordinated. The leader needs to be more directive, focusing on the task at hand. They promote ownership by the individual or team members and encourage their confidence. As the team develops, the leader focuses more on coaching. This is to get the group into agreeing how they will behave to complete the task. They sort out how they will work together, and there may be conflict during this time. If so, the leader should use a facilitative approach to lead them to resolution. As the individual or team becomes more confident and self-managed, the leader concentrates on leading the team overall and develops a delegation style. The typical application of the life cycle theory or the situational approach suggests effective leadership depends more on the characteristics of the situation than on the traits and behaviors of the leaders in those situations. According to this theory, leaders begin with a strict approach. They build self-confidence and mutual respect for each player or individual. They also nurture team leadership and establish trust with the members. As the name implies, leadership depends on each individual situation, and no single leadership style can be considered best. Tasks are different, and each type of task requires a different leadership style. A good leader will be able to adapt their leadership to goals and objectives so that they can be accomplished. Goal setting, capacity to assume responsibility, education, and experience are main factors that make a leader successful. Not only is the leadership style important for a successful leader-led situation, but the ability or maturity of those being led is a crucial factor as well. The trait approach suggests that we may be able to determine the specific characteristics or personality traits common to great leaders in business and industry. Leadership traits are relatively stable personality dispositions, such as intelligence, assertiveness, independence, and self-confidence. Great leaders are born and not made. Researchers have argued that successful leaders have certain personality characteristics that make it likely that they will be leaders no matter which situation they are in. This would suggest that common leader traits would be present in all leaders. However, this is not really seen. There are a variety of characteristics seen among leaders, and we do not see leaders in one area automatically recognized as leaders in another area. At this point in time, no common leadership traits have been documented among coaches, exercise leaders, or performers. Leaders have a variety of personality traits. No specific traits make all leaders successful in all situations. Behavioral approaches are nearly the opposite of trait approach. The behavioral approach suggests that the greatest leaders are made and not born. This would suggest that discovering universal behaviors of effective leaders could allow people to learn how to become leaders. Anyone could become a leader by simply learning the behavior of other effective leaders. In the non-sports setting, the Leader Behavior Description Questionnaire indicated that leaders fall into two categories: consideration and initial structure. Consideration refers to friendship, mutual trust, respect, and warmth between the leader and the subordinates. Initiating structure refers to setting up rules and regulations, channels of communication, procedural methods, and well-defined patterns of organization to achieve goals and objectives. Successful leaders tend to score high on both initiating structure and consideration. In the sporting context, we typically focus on specific behaviors in specific situations. The event recording technique was utilized to examine coaching behaviors and then record when and how often these behaviors occur. Researchers were able to identify 10 categories of behavior of successful collegiate basketball coaches. One of the coach's behaviors involved giving instruction, and he often encouraged intensity and effort. The behavioral approach suggests that leader coaches should focus on the positives, provide clear feedback and technical instruction, as well as utilizing frequent reinforcement. The Fiedler contingency model was created in the mid-1960s by Fred Fiedler, a scientist who studied the personality and characteristics of leaders. The model states that there is no one best style of leadership. Instead, a leader's effectiveness is based on the situation. This is the result of two factors: leadership style and situational favoredness. Fiedler's contingency model suggests that the effectiveness of an individual's leadership style stems from matching the style to the situation. The key to this model is maintaining a favorable situation. Fiedler argued that the task-oriented leader is more effective in either very favorable or unfavorable situations. A relationship-oriented leader is more effective in moderately favorable situations. Identifying leadership style is the first step in using this model. Fiedler believed that leadership style was fixed, and it can be measured using a scale he developed called the Least Preferred Coworker Scale, or LPC. The scale asks you to think about the person who you've least enjoyed working with. This can be a person who you've worked with in your job or in an educational or training setting. Next, you determine the situational favorableness of your particular situation. This depends on three distinct factors: leader-member relations, task structure, and leader's positional power. Fiedler identified three contingency factors, which are the key situational factors determining a leader's effectiveness. Task needs or task structure is the degree to which the job assignments are procedures. For example, are they structured or unstructured? The task structure means the extent to which the task requirements are clearly defined in terms of the task goals, processes, and relationships with other tasks. It has been observed that with clear definition of task structure, The actions of the subordinates can be well directed and their performances can be well controlled, which may not be possible in the case of unclear task structure. Individual needs is the degree of influence a leader has over power variables such as hiring, discipline, promotion, and salary increases. This is the last element of Fiedler's contingency model, wherein he talks about the relationship between the situational and appropriateness of leadership style. According to him, the leadership effectiveness depends on the situation, as one style favoring one situation may not necessarily be appropriate in any other situation. Thus, it is the situation that gives an opportunity to the leader to influence his subordinates through the right kind of leadership style. Leader-member relationships or team maintenance needs. This is the degree of confidence, trust, and respect shown by the members towards the leader. So how does Fiedler's contingency model work? The idea is that two different leadership styles, task-oriented and relationship-oriented, can both be effective, but in different situations. Fiedler identifies three different types of variables that can impact a situation. The variables are not all equal in importance, but they can include the relationship between the leader and the followers. This is considered the most important. Task structure. How defined are the group's tasks? This is considered moderately important. And positional power. How much formal authority is the leader given? This is usually the least important. The visual shows how these three variables can interact to form 8 different possible situations, also known as octants, and which leadership styles are best for each situation. Unlike other contingency theories, Fiedler's approach believes that leaders, by and large, have a set leadership style. In other words, if a leader is task-oriented, they will always be task-oriented and cannot quickly change styles to adapt to a changing situation. Leadership can be extremely complex, dependent upon the leadership theory you subscribe to. Leaders can either be made or they can be born leaders. Leadership is a process of influencing one or more people in a positive way so that tasks determined by the goals and objectives of an organization are accomplished. Bailing and Sherashim looked at the external-oriented activities of managers with higher authority, department heads, clients, and the community. They suggested that it is difficult to find a single leader who can exhibit strong concern for both people and productivity at the same time. The task, team, and individual are essential components that good leaders should pay attention to. Factors relating to the task, to the team itself, and to individual members of the team. At any time, the emphasis on each circle may vary, but all are interdependent, and so the leader must watch all three. Tasks need to include setting a clear goal and objective, and organization and management of the process. Team needs are things like effective interaction, support, shared work, and communication within the team and with other teams. Individual needs will of course vary from person to person, but the effective leader will pay attention to and deal with how each person is behaving and feeling. The functional model of leadership nowadays is seen rather basic, especially by managers who want to be considered sophisticated and up to date. However, it is a good approach to learn in your early leadership career, providing a solid foundation for a more complex human relationship. As a functional model of leadership, this indicates that if 2 or more individuals are appointed as leaders, they would have different strengths and maybe even different focuses. Trait and behavioral approaches emphasize personal factors at the expense of considering the interaction between people and their situational constraints. Most social scientists interested in leadership have not abandoned the debate between person and situation. Rather, they have searched in favor for a set of concepts that are capable of dealing with both the differences in situation as well as differences in leaders. Therefore, the interactional approach is often incorporated into other types of approaches of leadership. This suggests that the personal and situational factors must be jointly considered when examining leadership. No one set of characteristics ensures successful leadership. The greatest leaders have had common personality traits appropriate to leadership roles and also distinct from non-leadership roles. However, leaders are not predicted solely by their personality traits. Effective leaders fit the situation and the athletes involved in the situation. Different athletes want different types of leadership from their coaches. Leadership styles can change. You've probably heard the old adage, some people just don't have what it takes, but don't believe it. Good coaches and other leaders can alter their styles and behaviors to match the demands of the situation. Relationship-oriented leaders develop interpersonal relationships, keep lines of communication open, maintain positive social interactions, and ensure that everyone is involved and feeling good. They focus on developing and maintaining good interpersonal relationships. Task-oriented leaders primarily work to get the task done and meet their objectives. They focus on setting goals and getting the job done. Effective leaders match the situation. Good leaders can change from a relationship-oriented style to a task-oriented style and vice versa, dependent upon the situation. Another interactional model developed specifically for sport or physical activity is the multidimensional model of sport leadership. This model suggests that leader effectiveness in sports will vary depending on the characteristics of the athlete and on the constraints of the situation. In other words, optimal performance and satisfaction are achieved when a leader's required, preferred, and actual behaviors are consistent. This is the multidimensional model of sport leadership. An athlete's satisfaction and performance, box 7, are dependent upon 3 types of leader behaviors: required, which is box 4, actual, which is box 5, and preferred, which is box 6. The situation, box 1, and the leader, box 2, as well as the members, box 3, lead to these 3 kinds of behaviors, so they are called the antecedents. The following slides will explore some research on multidimensional models of sport leadership. The Leadership Scale for Sports, or LSS, was developed to measure leadership behaviors, including athletes' preferences for specific behaviors, athletes' perceptions of their coaches' behaviors, and the coaches' perceptions of their own behaviors. The LSS has 5 dimensions. Training behavior or instructional style. This is the motivation and teaching efficacy of coaches, and it appears to lead to training and instructional leadership behaviors. Democratic behavior or decision-making style. This allows athletes to participate in decisions about group goals, practice methods, and game tactics and strategies. Social support or motivational tendencies. This is attempting to establish warm relationships with athletes. And positive feedback or motivational tendencies. Positive feedback may be contingent upon performance and also may be limited to the athletic context. Some other factors associated with leadership may include the following: age and maturity. As people get older and mature athletically, they want coaches to get things done and are highly organized, but who is also supportive of their players. More mature athletes tend to prefer autocratic and socially supportive styles. There are also gender differences among preferred leader characteristics. Women tend to prefer democratic and participatory coaching, while men tend to prefer training and instructive behaviors. Nationality. Our cultural background may influence our leadership preferences. Also, the type of sport. Athletes who play highly interactive team sports prefer an autocratic coaching style more than do athletes in co-acting sports. Another leadership model related to sports is the Cognitive-Mediational Model. This is a model of leadership behavior that emphasizes relationships among situational, cognitive, behavioral, and individual difference variables. A situational approach to leadership behavior argues that coaching behaviors vary as a function of situational factors in the athletic context, and to coach and player individual cognitive differences. In the Cognitive-Meditational Model of Leadership, player perception of coach behaviors mediate the effect of coach behaviors on player response. Other studies have used the Coaching Behavioral Assessment System, or CBAS. Therefore, much of the information on preferred and actual coaching behaviors comes from the CBAS. About 2/3 of all observed coaching behaviors were found to be positive and fell into the following categories from the CBAS. These included positive reinforcement, general technical instruction, and general encouragement.